Means like I don't know how you feel, but like when I was
In the quiet aftermath of a dynasty, when the cheers have faded and the hardwood echoes with memory instead of noise, Stephen Curry stands as a man defined not only by triumph but also by trial. For every championship raised to the rafters, there were battles fought in shadows, wars waged against men who tested the limits of his brilliance. To understand Curry's greatness is to understand the foes who pushed him to the brink, those he could never forget, those he admits, even at 37, he hated most. This is not a story of casual rivalries. This is a story of enemies forged in fire, of grudges carried through seasons, of names that haunted the greatest shooter the game has ever known. Tonight, their names are revealed. Number 1. The first figure on Curry's list was the giant who defined the Eastern Conference, the man whose power was the polar opposite of Curry's finesse, LeBron James. Their rivalry was not born of malice but of destiny. 4 straight years of NBA Finals, each contest a clash of styles, a war of narratives, a duel between the king and the baby-faced assassin. Curry had dethroned LeBron in 2015, a triumph that shifted the balance of the league. But the king returned with vengeance in 2016, storming back from a 3-1 deficit, handing Curry the most humiliating defeat of his career. In interviews, Curry has admitted how deeply that loss cut, how it forced him to question not only his game but his very legacy. He never forgot LeBron's roar inside Oracle Arena, never forgot the block heard around the world, never forgot the parade in Cleveland that celebrated his pain. Even as they grew to respect one another, Curry carried the wound, because in that wound lay hatred. Hatred not for LeBron the man, but for the torment he represented, the shadow that followed every ring Curry ever lifted. At 37, when asked who he hated most, LeBron's name came without hesitation, for he was the one enemy who defined his story. Number 2. If LeBron was the mountain Curry scaled, Chris Paul was the thorn forever lodged in his side. Long before the championships, before the world bowed to his range, Curry was just a young guard in Golden State, struggling to carve his place. And there, standing across from him, was Chris Paul, the point guard. Their duels were never just about skill. They were about control, ego, dominance. Paul was the veteran, orchestrating the Clippers' Lob City era, humiliating Curry with tricks of the trade, even dribbling around him in moments replayed for years. Curry would later describe how those moments fueled his fire, how he hated the feeling of being treated like a child in a man's game. And when the Warriors finally broke through, when Curry crossed Paul so violently in 2014 that Paul fell to the floor, it was more than a highlight. It was revenge. Still, the rivalry lingered. Whether with the Clippers, Rockets, or Suns, Paul seemed forever destined to stand in Curry's way. Curry never forgot the smirk, the trash talk, the physicality. At 37, he admitted it openly. He hated Chris Paul because Paul was the man who made him earn every ounce of his greatness. Number 3. The third name is darker, more bitter, because it comes from within. Kevin Durant. When Durant first arrived in Golden State, it was not hatred Curry felt but awe. Together, they formed an unstoppable force, a juggernaut that bulldozed the league. But within the dynasty, cracks formed. Durant's need to prove himself, his search for validation, clashed with Curry's quiet claim to the franchise. Whispers filled the air. Was this Durant's team or Curry's? Reporters stoked the fire, fans argued endlessly, and even as the rings piled up, resentment brewed. Curry hated the way Durant's presence altered his place in history. He hated the narrative that suggested he could not win without Durant, that his own brilliance was somehow insufficient. And when Durant left, chasing his own kingdom, the dynasty shattered. Curry never spoke of this with venom in public, but at 37, when reflecting on the journey, he admitted the truth. He hated Durant not for his talent, but for the storm he brought into Golden State's house, the fracture that still echoes in the legacy of the Warriors. Number 4. Then came James Harden, the bearded assassin of Houston. Harden represented everything Curry despised in basketball. Where Curry's game was built on movement, rhythm, and grace, Harden thrived on isolation, on slowing the game into a crawl, on bending the rules to his will. Their rivalry in the playoffs was brutal, season after season, a dance of brilliance and bitterness. Harden believed he deserved what Curry had. He believed he should have been the face of the revolution, the true heir to the perimeter throne. In 2019, Harden publicly declared that what Curry accomplished was made easier by his teammates, words that Curry never forgot. Behind closed doors, he admitted the truth. He hated Harden because Harden mirrored him, a shooter, a scorer, but one who played the game in a way Curry could never admire. Their duels were legendary, their disdain palpable. And though Curry triumphed more often than not, Harden's challenge carved a permanent mark. At 37, Curry confessed that no man made him grit his teeth more than Harden, the rival who always insisted he was better. Number 5. Finally, there was Russell Westbrook, the storm to Curry's calm. If Curry floated across the court like a dancer, Westbrook attacked it like a soldier. Their styles clashed so violently that every meeting felt like a collision of worlds. Westbrook never hid his disdain. He mocked Curry's MVP award, called it undeserved, and sneered when the Warriors celebrated. In turn, Curry hated the chaos Westbrook brought, the relentless energy, the fury that made every possession a war. Their most infamous encounter came in 2016, when Curry's Warriors faced Westbrook's Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Down 3-1, the Warriors clawed back, Curry delivering daggers that silenced Oklahoma City. But the hatred lingered, fueled by Westbrook's glare, his mocking laughter, his refusal to ever concede an inch. At 37, Curry still remembered that glare, still felt the sting of Westbrook's words. He admitted he hated Westbrook because Westbrook never respected him, never acknowledged the artistry of his game. And so the list is revealed: LeBron James, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. 5 men who shaped Curry's journey. 5 men he could never forget. 5 men he hated not as enemies of his soul, but as architects of his greatness.